Today, I'm finally exploring KOII sample chopping, and we're going to get into it as soon as I shout out today's patron, and that shout out goes to Josh Klein. Thank you so very much for the support. Let's get started. All right, we're back at the KOII, and it's finally time that I check out the chop feature, which, even though I've made, feels like probably 10 videos on this thing by now, I haven't used this button combination of shift and sample to access chop even once. So I woke up this morning, poured myself a cup of coffee, and put on Sunwoo's sample chopping video on the KOII, so shout out to Sunwoo. Always appreciate the excellent content. But that is all the research on sample chopping that I have done. So I'm going to be using two different samples today because there are two different methods for sample chopping. These samples actually come from two of my patrons because every month I do a patron challenge where I challenge my patrons to create some sort of track following some prompts or guidelines, and then we live stream them at the end of the month for everybody. In the month of November, I challenged all my patrons to come up with drum parts to a song but no music. And then in December, patrons were assigned the drum beats of other patrons, and they got to make songs with other people's drum beats. But two of my patrons wound up not having their music used, just due to an imbalance of participants between the 2 months. So I've got drum beats from both of those patrons loaded up on this pad and this pad in Group A. So the first one comes to us from Josh. And the second one comes to us from If Dots. And we are going to chop both of these up using the two different sample methods and then maybe throw a bass line under them or something. Really, I just want to play around with the chops and, you know, kind of just do like a standard sample chopping session. So we're going to start with Josh's. I've got the sample selected. Right, that's the last sample I played. I'm in Group A right here. I can simply hold Shift and press Sample to enter Chop. I actually have not done this yet, so bear with me if I mess it up. Now we want to choose a group to place all of these chops into. So I'm going to go Group B. And now the screen says 12, and this number actually represents how many samples it's going to chop the master sample into. So this is where I think that the lack of a proper or a full 16 pad grid kind of hurts it, because 12 samples on a 4/4 beat is going to be kind of awkward. So I might actually set this down to 8, and we can preview those samples right here. Now, what's interesting is it's not just chopping it perfectly into 8. It's actually looking for the transients and attempting to, be a little bit smart about it. So you'll notice we don't get the beginning of the phrase here, which was that nice crashy China type symbol. So when you pick a chop, you can actually use these two knobs here to adjust the in and out points. And it can be kind of awkward, actually, because there's a little bit of a delay here. So it's at 4:05 right now. So what if we go... There we go. Like that. And I want this one to be a snare. Still a little bit laggy. Super touchy. Okay. I think I'm okay with just how these samples have landed. So now I can push pretty much any button and those samples are committed. You'll notice they're all on a mute group together, which you'd kind of want. But in this case, this is just going to be that snare drum. So I kind of want to take that off of the group. So I'm going to go Shift and Sound to edit it and then take it off the mute group. Okay. Oh, there's not one there. I forgot. You can see it's pretty easy, though. Although it might be a little bit tedious to go in and dial everything in perfectly. So that's kind of a bummer. I mean, it's not a deal breaker or anything like that, but I'm sure it can get frustrating if you're trying to dial in a chop like perfectly. But there is another way to chop, which is basically just holding down the pad to select your slices as the sample plays. So I believe we go to a different group. So we'll go to C and then Shift and chop. And now I think I can just hold down the pad and it'll start playing. And we can just start selecting where we want those slices to be. Okay, is that it? Yeah. Okay, cool. So that was actually pretty easy. Nice. And of course we can take these and pitch them, and you can still go into like keys mode, and you can treat them as individual samples, which is pretty cool. Now I'm intrigued because we've got two different groups of samples that are very clearly at two different tempos. So what happens if we just have some fun with this here, yeah? Let's just take this and put it like 4 on the floor. Interesting. Okay, I want this to be 2 measures long, and we're just going to go for it. There we go. Oh, I wanted 2 measures. That's kind of cool. That's groovy. We still got group D open here, so we can go... Let's turn off timing correct here. All right, here we go. Kind of messing with the volume. Let's try some sidechaining, I guess, and just see where that takes us. So we want group D to be affected by... This is the main kick. Okay, we'll do that then. That's better. Obviously, I am not one who typically composes using sample chopping at all, but I definitely wanted to check it out. I do think that the KO2 offers a pretty interesting way of doing it. I guess not necessarily the method itself, because that's pretty standard, you know, either an auto chop detecting transients, or doing the like the lazy style chop where you're just holding it down there. But the way it all works with the groups, I think, is actually really interesting, because I could go like here on pad 9 where I don't really have anything, and I could put a completely different sound here. And I could do something like this. could even do melodic stuff in there. We didn't even really touch Group A. That's where the original samples are. They sound kind of cool together, actually. Maybe we didn't even need to chop them. Anyway, there you go. That's how sample chopping works on the KO2. I'm sure, just like every other feature, there's a bunch of intricacies and ways you can make this, more your own kind of workflow. But I'm not really a sample chopping guy, so that's probably the most I'll touch it outside of possibly some live performance elements. But I wanted to use my patrons' drum beats at least for something. It wound up not being the coolest sounding thing, but I did what I came in to do, which was chop up some samples and rearrange them into some sort of pattern. I do hope you found this video informative or at least entertaining. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can always leave a dislike. That's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you all so very much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.